welcome to another detailed review. Now, most of you will know from the games I like theme, I like story. You give me those two things in the game, that's automatically going to make me want to play it. Not necessarily love the game, but it'll make me want to play it. And so today we're looking at Comanauts. This is a new Plaid Hat release, and recently they seem to be on this trend of doing story-based games. We've just recently had Gen 7, which I put in the last Anthology review, I believe. It was ho-hum, it was okay, the story wasn't that great, the premise was okay, but I mean, I thought it was alright, but a little bit overpriced. But go check that review if you want a bit more detail on it. This one is another one in that similar kind of line, really. It's a campaign story that you are playing over several games. It's a co-op, there's no hidden traitor or anything like that here. You are basically, and it's going also on the idea of this theme that seems to be recurring lately, which is all about people in comas. I don't know what it is. We've had the Troubled Life of Billy Kerr, you've got Stuffed Fables with a girl in a dream state, and now you've got this. What is it with people and comas lately? I don't know what started this trend. Is this like a movement I've not realised? I don't know. But with Comanauts, this is a co-op game where you are playing in, effectively, you're playing on a book, a spiral-bound book that has story elements that you read as well as the map location. It's a bit like playing, say, Near and Far, which is, it's out of shot, but yeah, if you know that game by Ryan Lockett, it's that kind of book with a map that you place your guys on. And the idea is that the world has gone to pot. You know, this whole scientific breakthrough has just gone like south, and this famous doctor has been put into a coma state. Unfortunately, there's a disaster, well, not natural, but there's a disaster heading for the Earth, and it's kind of like, oh, we need this doctor guy to work out how to stop it. The problem is, the accident put him in a sort of radiation-induced coma, and now you have to travel into his dream state, into his subconscious, in order to try and wake him up, in order to get information about how you can save the world. It's very much like those movies you've seen before where like a little bunch of scientists go into a guy's dream and they see visually all this weird stuff, a bit like Inception. Yeah, pretty much Inception actually. Think of that kind of thing. And the idea is that mechanically you are effectively drawing dice out of a bag, different colour dice that do different actions. You'll roll them in order to see how powerful the action is, and you'll go through the stories attempting to fight off the inner demons. You're trying to fight off a prime inner demon, they call them prime IDs, and each scenario will basically have you travelling through various aspects of the Doctor's life in order to combat, to find out which inner demon is causing him the most turmoil and to effectively fight it off. So there's a mix of combat and a mix of investigation. I don't want to say much more on that because I don't want to give away too many spoilers as to the story. But if you know those kind of films, if you've watched like Inside Out and Inception and things like that, you're effectively going by the same premise here. So how does it function? Well, let's look at it in more detail. The duration of each game kind of depends. I mean, you can play it standalone, or you can play it campaign mode. And we'll get onto more detail on that later, but certainly I would say play campaign, don't play standalone. But the scenarios have you going into a kind of, and I suppose I'll preface here, I'm going to try not to spoil it, but, forewarning, you might get the minor spoiler, okay? That's minor spoilers. But with this, you choose a location and you go to it, and the map opens and you have certain places you can go to and story elements that you read. Once you are done with that particular part of the map, you can travel to other maps in the same storyline in a sense. Like one might be, say, the academy he went to, and there might be 3 or so, maps as part of that university that he went to, but different aspects and different things are happening. And so you'll travel to the end of one of these sort of free map campaign things, and once you get there, you'll fight one of the inner demons, and then depending on whether you've found the prime ID or not, you will either end the game, or you will go to a different location and go through another set of maps. Now, the game has you shuffling a few of these inner demons into a pile and choosing one at random to be the one that is the prime. The idea is that as you go through each map, you find clues that kind of point you towards which inner demon the prime one is. It's kind of like a weird process of elimination. And if you can work out what you're doing from these clues, you know which map to go to next, and it means that the game will be a bit shorter. The first one you start at will always never be the prime ID, so you've got to go through those 3 maps basic already. but then you might have to go through another 3 maps in order to do the prime ID. But if you got it wrong and you find a different ID, you've got to go through yet another set of maps in order to get to another ID. And if you mess that one up, you got to do it again. And to be honest, at this stage, you're probably going to lose, because the longer you spend in there, the more that the subconscious fights back. But, you know, you could end this game after, say, 5 to 6 little maps that you go through, or it might not end until you die, or you end up playing like about 12 of these maps. So the duration is very, very stretched out. But I would say the least amount of time you're going to spend playing this is probably a good 60 to 90 minutes. It's not a short game by any means, but it could go on for longer if you spend ages going through these maps. And so I find that for what the game entails, more on that later, it's a bit long. I feel that even when I tried it solo, you know, I tried solo two-handed, because it says 2 to 4 players, you can play it solo, it really makes no difference. But it didn't seem like a very quick game. And like I say, all I'm going to say on that for now is I'm going to be talking about that in more detail soon. But yeah, you're talking 60 to 90 minutes for a decent game if all goes well for you. But if it doesn't go well for you, chances are you're going to be stretching that time length out a bit, and it goes a little bit on the verge of outstaying its welcome. The rules themselves aren't particularly difficult, but they're a little ambiguous in places. There was a fair amount of time I was checking the rulebook to see, hang on, what do I do with that symbol? What do I do with that? Oh, right. And it's not the clearest rulebook to follow, because it frankly is just a bunch of text. This is not how you do a rulebook, guys, okay? You know, it's not a big rulebook. Yeah, fair enough. It's not going to take you too long to get into the game. But that's about as much as you're going to see for pictures. And that page. And that's all set up and how each of the cards function, okay? So you've got that. You've got a setup diagram, you've got everything there, and it does have a fairly easy first-time player layout to go through. But then it turns into that. And then it turns into that. Hello? Pictures? Seriously? And then that. It seems that it starts off being a good rulebook, and then just sort of devolves into just a giant wall of text. Now granted, there's not a huge amount of rules, so this isn't the most complex game to get into, but you look at this rulebook, and you're trying to find specific parts, specific references, and it's hard to find them at times. But even then, it's just not an interesting rulebook to read. It's just, there's no pictures, there's no examples or anything. Now maybe they did that because they wanted to, you know, kind of not spoil anything in the game, but there must have been a way you could do it. Even if you just did the first scenario and showed some pictures there, I don't think it's really going to spoil a lot just by doing that. So, like I say, not too difficult to get into, but just a bit of the rule book could be better, and there is a bit of rule checking during the game, because you'll always be thinking, when do I do that particular thing? When do I do that particular thing? I'm not entirely sure. And even then, the setup is relatively lengthy. You know, you've got to, right, I need a location, I need to get the book open there, right, we need our avatars, we need our starting bits, we need our starting equipment, right, now I need to shuffle a bunch of IDs together, randomly choose one, get the clue cards for then, shuffle the others into a deck, and, you know, there's a fair amount of setup to do. You know, it'll take you a while to get into your first game, and even in subsequent games, you're probably going to have to add in a little bit of extra time as well. But, like I say, this is not a complex game. People will compare it to Stuffed Fables, which was the more kiddie family version that came out. This is definitely more for adults, particularly with the theme that it's going for. But that's not to say it's that much more complicated than Stuffed Fables was. Tactics and strategy. Well, this is where things start to fall apart a bit, if it hasn't already. The problem this game has is it borrows a lot from Stuffed Fables. Now, a lot of that stuff worked for families, it worked for kids. I don't think it translates well into one for adults, or particularly gamers, because there's a lot of luck in this game. A lot. You know, if you thought things like Arkham Horror were like a lot of luck because of the encounters and the fact you have to roll successes for that, don't play this. Oh my god. Because think about it. First off, you're drawing 5 dice out of a bag on your turn. This is a bag full of different coloured dice, and all the different coloured dice have different reasons for their use. So you're already drawing that at random, okay? Then you, depending on, you know, whether you pulled certain colours, you can do things with those, or some are bad, you don't want to draw them. And then you're left with what else there is. And then there's the fact that there's specific colours. So red does strength, green does agility, yellow does smarts, that kind of thing. And you might be at a position in the map, in the game, where you know you desperately need a certain colour die, but you never draw them. So you draw a bunch of red strength die, but there's no one to fight. So the dice suddenly become useless. Now, they try to mitigate it slightly by saying you can discard 2 dice to get another die, but you can only do that from the discard pile. So if that discard pile is not there and it's gone into the bag, or the dice you want hasn't come up yet, then that ability doesn't work. It doesn't help you. So I've had a lot of turns where I am frustratingly drawing dice out of a bag, having multiple turn after turn after turn, just waiting for the right colour die to come up. That's frustrating. That's not fun. But then on top of that, you have to roll the dice to beat certain challenges, like do a skill 5 test half the time. And 5 is a 1 in 3 chance. I mean, we played Arkham Horror, it's not the easiest thing to roll, a 5 or a 6. But you have to roll. So you have to roll to pass the test. And this boggles my mind. You have to roll to move. You get rid of any colour die, you roll it, that's how many locations you move. And certain locations you can't even use certain colour die for. Okay, this is 2019, guys, okay? We've moved, passed, roll, and move, okay? There is no reason for roll and move to exist in a game ever now. And yet you are picking specific dice randomly from a bag, you are hoping you get the right colours randomly, and then you're rolling those to get the right numbers randomly. There's a lot of randomness here. There's way too much that should be done, and just so many blank turns of doing nothing really got aggravating. Particularly as the game was already going on a bit long. It's like, look, I can finish the scenario if you just give me a rotten yellow die, for crying out loud. It's very frustrating. But on top of that, you feel like you're being railroaded a bit here. This is not open world. This is not like Near and Far, where you can pick whatever it is you want to do. Do I want to go on a quest? Do I want to get animals? Do I want to go find treasure? That's more open world. This one, you're kind of railroaded into a particular direction. This is not like, oh, we're on this map, right, I'm going to go talk to these people, or I'm going to go visit that location, or anything like that. No, it's pretty one-dimensional. It's pretty linear. The book will say, something has happened and this token appears here. Well, I guess I'd better go get that token then. I mean, I can't leave it. I have to go get that token. So I'll go get the token, and then you read that next bit of story. So already you get this impression that if you were to come back and play this again, you're going to see a lot of this content again, and you wouldn't necessarily approach the scenario any differently. A scenario will begin and you've got, right, I know there's 3 items there, and I know this does that, and I know this does that. Well, go get the items and go do those 2 things then. It's not going to be different either way. So you have some decisions to make, but I feel that you're kind of along for the ride here. There's not a lot of strategy, if anything, in this game, and tactics is fairly self-explanatory. I mean, like, oh my god, there's an inner demon there in front of us. Well, what else are you going to do? You're going to fight it. You can't run from it. You have to fight it. Oh, there's items there. Should I grab them? Well, duh. It's like, come on. It's not difficult to figure out. So, yeah, there's not a huge amount of tactics and strategy I found. It's just, you're there for the ride, you go through the motions, and you go through the story. But we'll get more onto that a little bit later. A for aesthetics, and yeah, this is a good thing about this game. It is a fairly well-produced game. It's a bit expensive for what it is, I'm going to give it that. The price is already putting off a few people, I've heard, and I can see why. Gen 7 had an equally bad problem. But this has an edge over Gen 7 that it does look a lot nicer. I mean, this is a very striking cover. It's got lots of surreal artwork like Dreamscape. The book itself is well produced. It's good quality. It doesn't rip apart or anything. The maps are nicely done. Very good pictures. The text and everything is kind of usually on a blue background, a bit like the back of this box, and that gets a little bit dull. But, the components themselves, they're good quality. You have standees, not miniatures, so you've got nicely drawn artwork on the standees themselves. And so, yeah, generally it's a well-produced game, and definitely, pops a bit on the table. You just have to get used to the whole kind of stark blueness of everything. I mean, this color blue here, you're going to be seeing that a lot in the book, on the cards, on a few things. There's a lot of that. So if your favourite colour is blue, you're in for a right treat. But yeah, generally pretty good looking, Pretty good components, not quite enough to justify that high price tag though, and something else is going to hurt that coming up later, but yeah, certainly does a good job. The integration of the theme, the immersion, this is where this one truly shines. However, that kind of works against the game as well. What I'm trying to say is that the story that has been written here, the designer here, a game by Jerry Hawthorne, I don't know if this guy's written books in the past, but I think he should consider doing this, because the best thing about Comanauts is the story. The story is really well written. And even though, as I was mentioning, that mechanically the game is a bit lackluster and I'm not a big fan of it, I kept getting brought back because I wanted to know what happened next in the story. I wanted to go to the next map and see what was there. I wanted to see what these inner demons were. I wanted to read the clue cards and the totems to see, okay, what trouble did he have with his father, and stuff like that. Stuff that it really did draw me back. And it is a very thematic game. I mean, what you're doing in it, the story elements and how the dreamscapes work and how this could have affected the guy's subconscious, it makes you think. And it's definitely very immersive. Unfortunately, that immersion doesn't combine well enough with the whole randomness of the dice gameplay to justify wanting to come back enough. And I have to confess, I got bored partway through the campaign and just decided, you know what, I don't enjoy this dice mechanic. Mechanically, this game doesn't work, so I'm just going to read ahead. So I did. I got to the stage I was at, and then I decided to read ahead and see more of the story. And I was impressed. I genuinely thought it was a good story. I feel like this game would be better as a book series or like a Netflix special. What was the one that Will Smith did? What it was, Right or something? No, I can't remember. But it was like Will Smith did like the one-off Netflix show with was like fantasy and elves and wands and stuff. Bright, that's it. Yeah, and I mean that was entertaining. But that was a one-off Netflix special. I could see this being a cool one-off Netflix special where I would watch it for an hour and a half and go, this is a cool story. This is some cool imagery, good creativity. There you are. Or a book series where one book you're going into his, dealing with trying to find his girlfriend, and the next book is dealing with past parent issues and stuff like that, and that would be really cool. But I don't think it works well with the dice here. This whole random gameplay and the being railroaded. If you're going to take me along for a ride, then make it into a movie. Then at least I am already along for the ride. Here, I want more choices, I want more tactics, I want more cooperation required. I mean, even to call this a cooperative game is a little bit like, whatever. Because you've got one action that allows you to sort of encourage another player, but other than that, it's just the fact that you're all there and you're after the same goal. There's only so much in the way of actual cooperation that you're actually doing. So, top marks for the theme and the story in this game. Really well done. Absolutely well done. I just wish it combined well with the rest of it. The longevity, again, this is going to be a problem here because you can play the standalone or in a campaign. Do not play the standalone. I cannot see the point of playing the standalone. It just would not work. But if you play as a campaign, you'll have an entertaining run through the campaign. Bar that is depending if you're a fan of the whole random dice thing. If that's going to put you off, then sorry, you won't like this game. But if that doesn't bother you, then great, you'll have a good campaign. The problem is that because it's a very linear progression through each map, and you have to do that whole shuffle the prime ID out and then look at clue cards and that, you're eventually going to remember this stuff. So you get to a particular map and you go, oh yeah, those guys appear over there and this is why we're here and stuff. And it's like, well, let me look at this clue card. Oh wait, I know that's self-doubt. Right, we don't need to worry about that. We can go somewhere else. And repeat plays are certainly going to be hindered by this. I mean, there's like some stickering you do with campaign settings and that, but you're still going to remember this content. There isn't enough variety on each map for each ID to keep you wanting to return again and again and again. So I feel that you're going to go, right, I've had one campaign of this. This was a fun story. I'm good. There you are. Problem is, this is asking quite a high price tag. So if you're going to demand a high price tag from me, I want to come back to this again and again and again. I do it with Mansions of Madness. I do it with the Arkham Horrors. I do it with Near and Far. You can't give me a once-only game charge, I mean, I can't remember the exact price of it, but it's pretty pricey, particularly in the UK. And it's just, I want to come back to it again, but I know the story. I know the elements. You know, each game that you play, when you come back to it, is going to be like, oh, right, okay, we've done the first scenario, right, let's go find this ID. Oh, wait, it's that one. You know, and that's just going to completely break immersion. So, I feel that you'll get one play out of this, one play out of the campaign. If you're a mega fan of this game, you'll probably get 2, max. But after that, I cannot see why you would come back to this a third time, or even to come back and do standalone adventures, because I don't think the gameplay is fun enough to do standalone, but then the campaign is good the one time you play through it. I don't think it's going to work subsequent times. So, yeah, replay value is kind of called into question here. So the final thoughts on Comanauts, a bit disappointed. You know, I really enjoyed the story. I like this theme, even though if I see another game about a coma patient, I'm going to roll my eyes, because we've had, what, like 3 or 4 in the last year coming, you know, just because one person's doing it doesn't mean you have to. And, like I say, very good story. That is the best thing. I mean, you could probably, if you, money no object, just buy this game and read the book. Forget the game, just read it. It's good. And if this guy, Jerry, wants to do other story elements for other games, then sweet, go and do that, because I'll pay attention to that when it happens. But the problem is that this whole randomness of everything you do in here, combined with the railroad system of how you progress, just kills the game mechanically for me. You know, the challenge in each scenario isn't, oh, can I figure out these clues? Because they're not that difficult to figure out. It's more just, will the dice hose you? You know, I've drawn some dice out of the bag. Oh, look, they're the wrong colours. Now I'll draw some more dice out of the bag. Oh, look, one of them's the right colour. Oh, I failed the test. Oh, well, next up. And that's the only reason you're doing badly at this game. It's not because you made the wrong choice anywhere, because you pretty much have dumb choice and right choice. It's pretty much the limitation of your choices. So, it doesn't... like I said, I really wanted to love this game. I wanted this to be like, yes, come on. You know, I wasn't blown away by Gen 7. I wanted this to be the one that said, oh yeah, sorry about Gen 7. Here's the one you really want to play. And I will say, this is better than Gen 7. I do prefer this one to Gen 7 because the story in this is far better than the one in Gen 7. But it's just not enough. The story and the theme is not enough to propel me through this game. Again, I got bored with this mechanically. I got frustrated with the constant turns where you do nothing. And the whole, like, oh, draw this. Oh, look, woe is me. Luck didn't go my way. And it just, it pains me. Because I really wanted to like it. But I don't. And I think, I mean, if you're not put off by that whole randomness element and you don't mind just going along for the ride, then give it a shot. Because the story I know you'll like. You just have to get past the whole mechanics aspect. But if, like me, that whole thing of the randomness is going to frustrate you, then push it aside. You're not going to need it. So I can't really say what I would personally give it. I mean, at most it's going to be a 6, possibly even a 5. It's average. It's an average game at best. I love the story in it, love the look and the theme, but it just is too frustrating to be fun. It just doesn't work enough as a mechanical game, doesn't have the replay value to want to come back to it again, and, you know, the rulebook is not the best one to go through, and the duration of it, how long each scenario takes, being wholly dependent on you figuring out those clues, again, can make it drag on to a long level. So it's about average. That's all I can really say for Comanauts. So, now, well, you can't love them all. So, that's it for me on this video. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple. And for now, doesn't matter if I'm in a coma or you're wide awake, it's still only a game. Take care, and I'll see you next time.